It is ringing. Sheila Zielinski.
Hello.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Hey, Sheila. Welcome back to the Edge television broadcast.
It's a pleasure to be back on your show, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Well, I tell you what, I've been listening to a lot of your shows, and Sheila, you just get better all the time. And I guess you also have a group of haters that follow you around only because you tell the truth. And what is it about telling the truth that people hate so much?
Well, yeah, I have a real list. Well, for every 4 people that love my show, I've got about 5 people that hate my guts. So yeah, I have them follow me around all the time too. And of course, I go in every one of these little, I call them these little jackals and hyenas and little CIA what do you call that? COINTELPRO little. I'm sure they have like a little room in the back of the CIA where they assign all these guys to keyboard commando posts, Daniel.
Yeah.
Just go through our litany of stuff, and they get really nasty on there. And I noticed something recently. They are coming out of the woodwork, these nasty jackals and the hyenas and the little people that'll get stuff stirred up on your posts. I'm sure you have them too, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And they follow, mainly they like to desecrate my YouTube channel, and put the comments in there and say, who is this hick dude? But usually they just don't like the content, man. If they can't stand the truth, it sounds like a bunch of snowflakes out there.
Well, actually, Apostle Paul said a phrase that is really applicable. He said, what I hate, how'd it go? I tell you the truth and I become your enemy. So I think something about the truth really triggers people very much. It causes them, well, it's like liberals, like you just said earlier, snowflakes are going to melt. I mean, it just causes them their heads to explode when you can actually provide a rational mode of thought, a rational argument, common sense, which is really not so common anymore, is it?
Well, it seems like when there's a truth levied out there, the response is yelling. There's not like a equal and opposite from their point of view truth. It's just when you're getting yelled at or names coming out that that you hit their little spot there and they just can't stand it. And so I mean, and then of course you get the all caps, and then that just that makes it even better. That makes their version even better. It's like and I was thinking the other day, and I put this on my Facebook, that inevitably whatever the conversation is, it can be about sewing, it can be about dogs, it can be about Trump, whatever. Eventually somebody is going to call somebody else Hitler. Have you noticed that?
Well, I think basically Hillary Clinton just did that yesterday. She was on a BBC. Really, I mean, of course, you know how Hillary just loves to take an opportunity to bash Trump. She said, after all, we have someone admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office. And I thought, have you met your husband?
Well, she is the ultimate apologist for abuse of women. And it's amazing how that anybody who comes up and levies a charge against Bill, she will denigrate that woman. I don't know that she always claims she's for women's rights and stuff, but I think she's only for women's rights of a certain political persuasion.
Well, speaking of liberal rights, I want to know something, and I asked this question. Where's Hillary in the Women's March or Antifa, Daniel? Where's their protest against the rampant sexual abuse of these sexual miscreants? Where's that big rally? Oh, that's right. Nothing to see here.
No, there is no rally. And I was looking for a women's rights rally in Hollywood, and I haven't seen one. I've scoured the YouTube channels. Where are they marching? Are they marching for Antifa or something? So they're busy? I'm not sure.
Well, Antifa actually apparently, allegedly, they have put out some information. I've actually had somebody vet that information, and they have a big, well, what do you want to call it? Planned, a big Trump smackdown planned on November 4th. They say they're actually going to physically remove him out of the office. Some of them are commenting on various multimedia outlets. But, I mean, this Antifa is out of control, isn't it?
Well, it is. It sounds like a bunch of haters to me. And, I don't know. It's kind of like the NFL. I'm not really sure what they're protesting. I just know that there's a lot of hate out there. And, I don't see them, marching for poor people or helping poor people out or doing any such a thing. I see them wrecking neighborhoods and bashing into into tennis shoe stores and grabbing some shoes. I don't know what kind of social justice that is. Is that tennis shoe justice or what?
Well, where besides Hollywood, Daniel, and I call them Hellyweird, do we see a ruthless culture of sexual exploitation? If you guessed NFL, Daniel's listeners, you would be right. And, this Weinstein's rape scandal is the only beginning of the Hellyweird inevitable descent into hell. There you go. Hellyweird is going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, they're in inevitable downfall for 10 years. I don't know how long you've been calling this ubiquitous plethora of sexual miscreant out, but I've been doing it for 10 years. But I think what's really interesting now, and this is probably a result of all our warfare prayers, God is now pulling back the curtain on these devils. You watch and see, Daniel, all these little unscrupulous charlatan rats turn on each other like the little evil little golems that they are. And I don't know if you heard this little Eminem rap. I mean, it's the guy's got an album coming out in like 3 weeks. Gee, any publicity is good publicity. But I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable that people can stand there and watch just an absolute degradation of everything that the backbone of America. That goes with these New World Order bullies of the NFL too, to bully us into submission, who kneel or hide when our national anthem's being played, forcing a captive audience to witness their disrespecting, vile, insulting, and uninformed view of what America stands for. That's a slap in the face to my grandfather and father. That's a slap in the face for the men that died and bled in the battlefield to provide the blanket of freedom these NFL people enjoy. That's unbelievable, Daniel.
Well, it is, and it seems like anything that means anything is under assault. Anything that's based on, that has a moral component to it, is like it's in the target zone of these kooks. And it seems to me, I heard the other day that maybe you might correct me on this if I'm wrong, but did the cast of the new Star Trek take a knee? I don't know, but if that's the case, I'm not going to watch that damn program anymore either.
Well, I guess the whole thing is it's just getting to be this insane mindlessness. And that's what it's mindlessness. It's like the idiot LeBron James, who this week was on Jimmy Kimmel, of course, late night's lemming is what I call him. But he blames Trump for dividing us. Hello, LeBron, you oversized, overpaid buffoon. You might want to go do some homework and maybe read like the WikiLeaks, the George Soros and his ilk and all their divide and conquer, divide a nation, the Saul Alinsky Hell's Kitchen playbook. They don't understand. Maybe they're just mouthpieces, but boy, they're really pulling out all the stops at these pro athletes, celebrities, the Hellyweird minions, their little confabs like the Grammys, the Emmys, the late night, the late night absolute liberal lemmings, the underlings that are always like Jane Fonda, for example. She tweeted out this thing yesterday. Oh, I knew about Weinstein, and I'm ashamed I didn't say anything. Oh, shut up, Jane Fonda, you hireling, you so-called feminist, you abortion-loving pal of that demon Gloria Steinem. You didn't feel bad about knowing about it for 30, 40 years, and your husband, the big depopulationist that he is. Like, who are they fooling, Daniel?
I'm just happy that Jane Fonda had it out sort of with Megyn Kelly on her own show. But no, where have all these women been? I mean, either they're been in agreement with it, or for whatever reason they're getting some use out of it. I don't know, but I give them credit for coming out of the woodwork and piling on. But names like George Clooney's coming out, and Matt Damon. They called Clooney and Ben Affleck something about the something about finger somewhere. I don't know where it was, but anyway, he's followed a bunch of women. So I mean, they all seem to be in on it. But here's what I see, Sheila. Trump seems to be a master at dangling shiny objects in front of the opposition, and they grab that thing every single time. Now he dangled that in the NFL, And they just went all out. And then now they have been exposed. Their true agenda never was for social justice or, they want peace. And, the NFL says, we're about unity and community. He dangled that shiny object and they all reared up there and they showed their true colors. They're a bunch of haters and they hate America. And there's another agenda at play. And every time he dangles that shiny object, whether it be in front of Megyn Kelly or, the NFL, they grab it and they are exposed for who they really are.
That's exactly what I mean by you watch all these little rats run for cover. And, it's one thing for Ben Affleck to come out and beak off about Harvey Weinstein is just scratching the surface of this endemic problem in Hollywood, really, Daniel. Look at Corey Feldman came out for years. Would Barbara Walters say to him, you are accusing an industry. This is very harmful. I mean, they bashed him. They browbeat him. They beat him down. Look at Corey and also his little co-actor there. Remember from that show, Lost Boys, the other Corey Feldman. These people did just bashed him. They trashed him. They basically told him to go shut up and sit down. So this is what happens with this miscreant, all the pedophile rings. And speaking of, the NFL has actually been involved with that. Look at Ted Gunderson exposed. You look at what had happened with the Philadelphia, that team. I mean, there's so many things that we've written on, we've exposed these pedo rings. Craig Sawyer, the really high level Navy SEAL, Dev Gru SEAL Team 6 sniper, he is actually got a Vets for Child Rescue organization. And the stuff that they've exposed already, Daniel, is unbelievable. You wouldn't believe how high this thing goes up. It goes all the way up to the top of the food chain with, MK Ultra, with these Illuminati sex slaves, all these children being, with the trafficked children, politicians, pedophiles. This is one sick, twisted cornucopia, Daniel.
And you're right. And there's so many names that keep popping up. By the way, George Soros, isn't he dead yet? I mean, what's the holdup there?
Well, David Rockefeller died. And then we had another scumbag die a month ago. So we're 2 down, probably 700 to go.
Did I just see that George Soros is on the board of directors of the Mandalay Hotel in Vegas?
I haven't heard that connection, but, nothing would really surprise me with this shooting incident. You've got, just nothing makes sense. Every other day there's a new twist, a new turn. It's unbelievable. I almost think it was like, you can picture those guys sitting around their room going, okay, listen, you know what? This whole narrative on the Las Vegas shooter is, it's going down in flames. Run that Harvey Weinstein story.
Well, I call him Harvey Weinerstein there. I mean, he just reminds me of Anthony Weiner, so I call him Weinerstein. And they both got problems with the Weiner issue. But, hey, this is what the Democrats do in general. They lecture everyone else about morality and how we should feel and how we should give money to certain organizations and how we should, hey, you shouldn't say Merry Christmas. You shouldn't have the 10 Commandments out. They're telling us all these things as if there's some sort of elevated morality that they have. But in the end, these guys are sick and they have no business telling anybody what to do.
Well, and they all have each other's back, these sickos. It's just like the PayPal founder, Peter Thiel, came out and he said, listen, we drink blood. And people went, what? Wait a minute, huh? You drink blood? Well, just for anti-aging purposes. I mean, things are they're just coming out of the woodwork with these demons. So you've got these, transhumanists. You just mentioned you're going to have Carl on this show. I mean, he's been to all these transhuman conferences where their ultimate, it goes back to Aleister Crowley. What's their ultimate end game here? Immortality, Ray Kurzweil, the poster child for transhumanism. What are these guys trying to do? The ultimate morality issue is, hey, let's forget about when, we're not going to die. We want to become like gods. The raising of Osiris, that's a part of the Illuminati occult piece of this whole Mandalay Bay massacre, as I call it. There's so many elements of the occult, the Illuminati. Harvest Festival is a big thing. You mentioned Burning Man, these occult harvest rituals. So I put this video together and it was really compelling. I think it's called Revealed is the Las Vegas Shooter. I don't have my YouTube channel up, but it's something about, is it a Illuminati deep state occult sacrifice? And I think I make a pretty compelling case, Daniel, when I tie all this information in. So you get into the Aleister Crowley underbelly of high-level witchcraft and mind control, monarch programming that ties back in with these Hellyweird minions. I mean, how many of these young girls, you have Miley Virus and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and all these girls that, lose their minds, shave their head. What's that all about? With Katy Perry, we saw this meltdown recently. So what is their programming going wonky, or what's going on there?
Well, no, there is some kind of programming, and I was listening to you and Russ Dizdar, and that was an excellent program you did there. I mean, all your programs, Sheila, are right on target, and they don't mince words, and that's really why I like having you on the program. So what's becoming clear is the sort of the conspiracy topics that people talk about, So, a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, and you said 10 years ago, people were saying, I think there's pedophilia involved with these people, and there's some evidence that, but the evidence is mounting. It's sort of like, once it gets to a certain crescendo, then people say, well, wait a minute, maybe this stuff is true. But then once we have this truth, I think people need to do something with it. Now, I never thought myself that I would ever disown or disavow the NFL. But they've crossed, talk about a line in the sand, man. They're a line in the sand, but really it's the whole culture. It's been just blown apart. And I believe that what's happening is they want to put something back in there. Now, how Trump got in there, I want to ask you, do you feel like there's anything, and not that he's a special person or anything, but is there some sort of divine implication that he was put in there because he has messed up that entire program?
Oh yeah, he's he's going after the swamp creatures. Well, I think the hand of God is on him myself. I'm not always popular when I say that, but I think it was a miracle the man won. They already had newspaper covers the next day saying Hillary won. They expected their little New World Order minion to win. So I think it's very clear when you look at a man's enemies, Daniel, the witches hate him, the occultists hate him, the pedophiles hate him, the Hellyweird minions like Eminem and Jane, everybody hates the guy's guts. So that kind of tells me something. Witches are casting spells on him. That is front page news. Who would have thought they'd even have heard that a year ago? If you had told me that would have been mainstream news. It's just like right out of the Twilight Zone with this guy. Look at all the things he's already done. He's talked about going after the Federal Reserve. He's already looked at the Johnson Amendment. He's hammered down some of these fools. He's kicked Comey to the curb. I mean, I could write a book on just what he's done in the last 6 months of going up against the globalist regime. So I think he's really given the New World Order. He's making him nervous, Daniel. I really believe that's true. Do I like Jared Kushner? Do I have questions about some of these Sabbatean Kabbalists? The Ivanka Trump, I have a big question mark about her. But all in all, I think, honestly, Trump is really trying to make America great again.
And that was the exact opposite of the last guy that was in there, who was trying to dump America out into the ocean. I mean, if I looked at everything that Obama did, every single thing that he did was an attempt to undermine the United States, its credibility, its military, its finances, its healthcare. And then there's this ongoing program that they have on that side of the aisle to import millions of people. And when they talk about, don't you love the DACA, and the kids and the poor illegal Mexicans and the Muslims? What they're really saying is we need voters because we can't win an election the way it is. We've got to import voters. And I think it's just amazing that we had this almost like this one last chance where people had to put a stopper on that, and he got elected. It reminds me, there was a book written called The Providential Life of George Washington. And in that book, the British soldiers reported many times that they had him trapped, the Revolutionary Army, but they couldn't get him. They would cross a river, the Revolutionary Army would cross the river, and then the British would think they have him trapped. Then all of a sudden, as they get ready to cross the river, a big torrent comes down there and blocks them. And so, it almost kind of like that. And I don't know really why America got this sort of chance. At least we got a delay from the globalist agenda, but there seems to be a chance there given. What do you think we should do with that chance, Sheila?
Well, I think it's almost like we've been given a little window, and I keep kind of asking God, what is this window for? Why are we given some time here, before this complete implosion happens. Is it to win souls? I don't know. It's not God's will that any should perish. You know, Trump has absolutely undermined, which I love. I love this, the fact that he's put the kibosh on almost every single one of Obama's orders. Single-handedly, he's overturned all these executive orders. He's, look at he's done with the EPA, overhauling the EPA. I'm loving that because Scott Pruitt is my man over there at the head of the EPA, and they're bringing back coal. They're cracking down on these bogus climate plans. I mean, you got to love that. Look at the Iran deal. Look at NAFTA. Look at all these devilish NDAA things that Trump is trying to, and then look at he's up against too with your, Diane Not-So-Feinstein and Chuck the Schmuck and this whole look at John McCain yesterday coming out. Well, I got to reach across the aisle. Too bad he's always reaching left, though. Hey, Daniel?
Well, he is always reaching left. He might as well just come out as a Democrat because that's what the hell he is. And I just want to know what that big old jowl-looking thing is on the side of his face. That almost looks like an implant. Maybe he's a Manchurian candidate. Normally, they put an implant in the head, but I think he may put something in his jowl there. But no, he is he's Mr. Trump underminer dude. He's a stopper dude. I don't even know why they can't kick him out of office down there. I mean, he's against everything that Trump does. And I agree with you about Trump undermining all the Obama things. And it is really fun to watch. And I wonder what goes on in Obama's mind as he sees his legacy being taken apart piece by piece.
I think probably him and Valerie Jarrett stay up at night over a glass of Shiraz trying to figure out his next playbook move. He's a communist agitator. He was trained by the best. He was a Saul Alinsky minion. And look at who Saul Alinsky dedicated his book to, Lucifer, by the way. So this is really what's going on. These demons, these devils. Don't get me started, by the way, on, the Weatherman Underground and how Obama came up, Bathhouse Barry and all his underlings. He was a communist agitator. Frank Marshall Davis, also on the commie top watch list. I mean, this guy was born and bred, as you just said, a Manchurian candidate. Now, speaking of Manchurian candidates, by the way, I really believe this Paddock, there's something stinks in Denmark with this guy. Was he a mind-controlled, programmed, multiple, a government mind-control programmed assassin, a sleeper? These handlers that use these powerful forms of hypnosis. This is similar to neuro-linguistic programming. They have this high-level hypnosis, and when they receive, like you just said, I was thinking of that show, The Manchurian Candidate, the Hollywood version where, they just give them a code word over the phone. I think it's a lot more elaborate than that. It's like, see the Delta Fox run, and all of a sudden, it kicks in this. I think it's, Lebensborn. The Nazi Lebensborn program was the highest level of occultism and mind control. It wasn't just people go, oh, blonde hair, blue eyes. No, that was only a piece of the Aryan construct. But as much as people want to talk about, that part of it, it was a high level witchcraft with mind control and demonization and splitting these personality splitting. And I said this on the show with Russ. So you said you listened to it. I said in order to be a programmed multiple, you have to have a programmer. Look at these Illuminati bloodlines and the things that have come out about these chosen ones, like 4, 5, 6, 7 generations of programmers. So, like Russ says, the Black Awakening scenario, could it be, all these kind of like we saw with Holmes, Jared, VTech Shooter? Could we see some kind of a Black Awakening where these guys are all just triggered at once? Some kind of a bloodbath. They were maybe beta testing us a few times. Over and over we see these profiles of these shooters. They're, nobody would ever suspect they would do that. Why is that, Daniel?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is a bunch of freaks. But there is more and more evidence that there is all these things going on and so much more. We talk about the deep state. This thing is real. Okay. I mean, Obama was the head of that deal, and his people are still in there. As far as I know, that's why he built, that's why he moved into DC somewhere and built a wall around his establishment so that he could control all his handlers and controllers are in there right now trying to undermine Trump. But you mentioned the war that's going on. Trump has stopped the war on Christmas. He stopped the war on coal. he stopped the war on morality when he said, if you're a transvestite and you want an operation, and I don't even know why Obama felt that people should have the right to go for the only reason, go into the military so they can get a $8.5 million transvestite operation. And these people have to have psychological evaluations and drugs the rest of their life. So Obama is trying to undermine morality, but in that war, Trump's trying to reverse it. So there is a war going on, and I think people need to become more aware of that war, that it is real, and all these fronts, and to join the resistance. Hillary says the resistance. No, there's a resistance for good old America is what's going on too as well.
And hey, you know what? With the transgender ban, if you can't figure out what sex you are, you don't need to represent me in the military. That's just very simple way of putting it, isn't it? Because these people have deep-rooted issues. So there's like 57 genders that have come out now. I got a news flash. God created the male and female, and that's it. It's just all out insane. It's like an insane asylum. It reminds me of the Twilight Zone song playing off in the background. And it's just, I think this liberal progressivism ideology is actually a form of mental illness. I say liberalism. Let's find a cure, folks.
Well, I think some good psychotropic drugs ought to help them out quite a bit, or at least sedate them. But I'm saying that my ranting points, Sheila, I was kind of hoping that maybe California, I call them Californicators, they just break that thing off and float on out to sea because, they've said they're a sanctuary state anyway. Well, they can be a sanctuary off the mainland as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Kim Jong-un can say something about that too. Hey, here's a question from Kevin in Massachusetts, Sheila, to you. It says, do you think the Las Vegas shooting was a ritual blood sacrifice like 9/11?
Well, I think he needs to go and look at that video I did that was 37 hours worth of work. Because you know what? The bottom line is it's not a 1 minute answer, Daniel. I think that it's very compelling what I put together. And I'm going to, on the break, I'll throw you the link so you can put it up because it is a show that people have to watch. I think it's up for 3 days. It's got something like 20,000 plus views. And a lot of people are really floored by that video, the amount of work that went in it. It's not a 2 minute answer. But my short answer is I absolutely think it was an Illuminati plant, a deepest, not deep state, not deeper. There's, I think, a deepest state going on too. And that's the top of the food chain. Some people say it's the Knights Templars. Some people say it's, the Illuminati, the Freemasons, whatever glove that fits the hand of whatever you guys think. If you were to do a pyramid, who is at the top of the food chain? Well, Satan himself, and then all his little underlings. So, pick your group. Who is involved in it? Was it high-level Freemasons? Do you know Mormons are also high-level Freemasons, and so are Scientologists, and so are most of these cults. So, I have to do a show exposing how all this fits, because I think it was Fritz Springmeier and I was talking about Mormonism and Scientology, and just straight out of the pit of hell, some of these cults, and it all goes back into Bethel, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're straight up Satanists. And if you ever said that to them, their programming just kicks in. It's a form of neurolinguistic programming where they don't believe anything. You could show them somebody getting their head sliced off at the Kingdom Hall, and they still would not believe you, Daniel. They would tune out.
Well, how is it that we have a country that would allow a play like in New York City where a Donald Trump figure is being stabbed to death? How would that ever even be allowed in a civilized society?
Well, it wouldn't in a civilized society. But then look at what's going on in terms of the division, the discord, the sowing of discord. George Soros and his ilk are masters. And what did Alinsky say? If you create problem after problem after problem and you inundate, read the book Rules for Radicals, folks. Don't just say, oh, okay, I've heard of the book. No, go and read what he says in there. The steps, we can talk about that in the next hour and break that down a little more, Daniel, but it's very, very high level psychology that goes into all these playbooks of Antifa, the Black Lives Matter. Like I said, where are these guys with all the sexual predators? Nothing to see here. I find that really strange, don't you?
Yeah, there's a deafening silence about the whole thing, I'm sure. And I think there was a Jake Tapper on CNN. They were talking, they mentioned Harvey Weinerstein, and then they started playing clips about Donald Trump. I was thinking, wait a minute, is is this about Harvey Weinerstein or is this about Trump? You know, they don't say, like you just said, don't look over here with this guy 20 or 30 women and stuff and rape and things. Look at, listen to what somebody said 10 years ago in a locker room. You know, it's like, wow. So there's an all out war. And, you know, when I look at my Yahoo news feed, it is 100% anti-Trump. I could just write their stories for them. Trump's the worst this, Trump's, horrible at this. Everything he does, it's like, it's the worst case. And all these people are in on it. And so that tells me that somebody's writing a playbook. Now, would we think that's the globalists, the Illuminati, Knights Templar, who do you think? All together?
Well, I think this whole thing is all Hell's Kitchen milkshake of subjugation is what it is, because it is part of that. It's part of this whole Hegelian dialect. You know, you fire in your other recipes, like I said, the Solinsky playbook, the rules of radicals, the Hitlerian propaganda, as you just mentioned, his whole entire propaganda ministry with Goebbels. What did they say? You keep repeating a lie over and over and people will believe it. You add in some, like I said, mind control. Look at these guys that watch these football games all the time. You know, the alpha, the beta, the alpha, gamma, beta, theta, lulling people into sleep. That's actually on record. Do you know that?
No.
I actually talked about that for years. The fact that these guys were putting people into trances, using neurolinguistic programming, which I have to do a show on that too. There's so, and then look at these tech companies that are taking over. It's because, Daniel, I think you've had a little bit too much to think, sir. Step out of the car. It's not that you're like, I change that up, if people got that or maybe that went over their head. Like you've had a little bit too much to drink, too much to think. They don't want you to think for yourself. We're not allowed to say, we're not allowed to say anything. We get I don't know about you, but all my YouTube is demonetized, every single show. Might as well just shut down my channel if I didn't just want the content out there. Google and Facebook, or Gulag and Fascist Book, are taking over the internet. Social media, you're not allowed to say anything about Colin Kaepernick. I mean, what is wrong with this picture? You're not allowed to say anything about Hillary. You're not allowed. In fact, I got my Twitter account complete. Well, this is what's happening. So you'll appreciate this, Daniel.
Okay.
So I tweet. I had 87,000 Twitter followers at the beginning of January. So a couple months ago, I tweet out this thing to John Podesta, calling him out as the child rapist that he is. The very next day, suddenly I'm down 10,000. And then I've been down 1,000 every single day. We're taking screenshots every single day. It's went down 1,000 since I made that. So now I was down to 60,000 2 days ago, and now I'm down to 55,000. Like, what's that all about? It's like I can hear the Twilight Zone playing. But yeah, so this is the kind of vitriolic attacks that we're getting with these companies that are all a part of this big mishmash.
How is it that John Podesta is in any way able to have something to say in the national conversation, with considering his drawings of children and pornography that he does?
Well, if anybody went back and actually looked at Comet Ping Pong and that Alfonso, I actually took about 100 pictures off the guy's original Twitter account. I saw some of the link-ins of Podesta's. I actually Googled the internet and found Tony Podesta's cell number. I called him up I actually recorded it. I called him up and he hung up on me, of course. But I mean, I called these guys out. And yet Alex Jones did a whole flip-flop on, nothing to see here. Right. Sorry, we were wrong about the Comet Ping Pong. Megyn Kelly, speaking of that little jackal who NBC is shaking their head there. She doesn't have an audience, by the way. No. And she, her stats are plummeting faster than my Twitter account is plummeting. So it's really interesting how these devils can just throw out there whatever they want. And then all of a sudden Podesta gets complete, it's like he gets complete backup by everybody in Hollywood again. It's the same thing. It's the same DC Democratic miscreants. I'm glad that Democrats have such incredible standards. Good thing the Democratic Party has such incredible ethics, said the rapist to the pedophile to the tax cheat, right?
Well, it's interesting. Talk about that shiny object I was talking about earlier. Megyn Kelly went against Trump and during the debates, and she literally destroyed her career when she did that. And I understand now that her ratings are so bad that the network is saying that insiders are saying that they're dragging down. I guess she's before the Kathy Lee and Huda program, and it said that people are turning the TV off and they're not turning back on, so they're wanting to move her to another place because she's such a drain on the ratings. She's absolutely worthless, and nobody knows what her program's all about. But she's just another casualty of somebody trying to come up against Trump, like the 16 Republican swamp creatures that came up against him. One by one, he just swatted them away like flies. It was something to behold. Now, the NFL tried to do the same thing, and then their ratings are plummeting, and they've been exposed. So it seems like everybody who challenges Trump or comes against him, something happens to them.
Well, and the National Football League, and like I said, I mean, for years I've been exposing them as this, this propaganda globalist new world order machine that it is. Look at the LGTB agenda. Just listen to some of these headlines. I did a breakdown onto this. They included sex between men and a man and a man at one of their AIDS awareness thing that was sponsored by them last year. Let's see. I'm gonna actually, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go through some of these. I actually wrote this out, and I haven't even published this yet, but I'd like to actually go through this list with you. You're gonna be
let's hear it.
You want to do it after the break, or?
Yeah, let's do it after the break. Make a note there, because we'll be taking a break here in about 10 minutes. So yeah. Hey, interesting. You mentioned about the witches trying to put a spell on Trump. Remember Obama talking about people clinging to their Bibles and their guns as if religion was the opiate of the masses, so to speak. But yet his side is doing incantations and spells, and even Hillary, who nearly got elected to be the president of the United States, wants to have a voodoo doll and poke the voodoo doll of Donald Trump. I mean, do we really want a president that operates in voodoo?
Well, actually, Hillary herself is a high-level coven witch, and that's just on record. The people that have worked for her. I'll talk about that after the break too, because I actually did an article on this. I'll shoot it over to your folks. You'll be shocked at the proof positive that this woman is nothing more than a witch who used to go out to these occult festivals in California, probably not too far from where her husband went to the Bohemian Grove 40-foot statue. And that's another crazy thing. Listen to this. When they're doing these incantations, there is an this is actually shocking, an LA Times author who is one of their opt-ed editorial people over at the LA Times, said they're joining in. The LA Times is joining in on casting spells. One lady said, "Oh my gosh, ever since I'm a witch from California named Judy, it's Judy Moore, I believe her name was. I'll pull that article." But she says, "Yeah, ever since I said I'm casting spells on Donald Trump, my phone has been ringing off my divination little psychic shop in California. My phone's just been ringing off the hook they want to know what the recipe is. Is it bat of eye of newt and bad? I don't know what she's doing over there, but she said, yeah, I'm really sending out my recipe to all these people. I thought that would be interesting to phone her up and see what they're doing over there. But I mean, this is insanity.
Well, when you talk about recipe, are you talking like Hillary's spirit cooking?
Yeah. No, that was Marina Abramovich.
but everybody wants the recipes of spirit cooking.
Let's not get into that right out of Hell's Kitchen recipe. But that ties in with Podesta. The Podesta is, very casually saying on WikiLeaks, hey, Tony, we're going to go over to do a spirit cooking at Abramovich's. And they didn't even say Daniel Ott, who sounds very Daniel Ott has invited us to something. No, they said Marina. Usually when I say, Daniel called, I know who that is, right? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's pretty obvious if you're on first name basis, you'd know who that is. Marina's invited us over. What would you like, pizza or hot dog? Wink, wink. Really? Wink, wink. Are you really going to talk about pizza and hot dogs in high-level correspondence too? Right. Like we also found, we know the code words for Pedogate, Pizzagate. Mm-hmm. And that thing, why is there all this silence on Pizzagate? I'd like to know. That thing should never go black.
Well, there's another thing that Alex Jones went back on there. I think he was going to be sued.
Yeah, he was going to be sued.
So he had to back off. But yeah, you're right. I mean, so yeah, we talk about where's the conversation of that? Where's the conversation about, was it really Loretta Stench and Bill Clinton talking about grandkids? I mean, somebody's always rewriting the conversations and they spoon feed us what they want us to consume. And this is kind of going on with this Vegas shooting. Isn't this the longest they've ever had a motive on any kind of major event?
Well, again, it's every other day, though, there's some new twist. And, I had a round table. It was called my Gun Rights Defense Post-Mass Shooting in Vegas round table. I had a Navy, Dev Grew Navy SEAL. I had a SWAT team head lead guy. I had Chuck Baldwin, syndicated columnist, who's a big gun guy in Montana and a pastor. And also I had on Larry Pratt, the Gun Owners of America, on that round table. And one of the things that, of course, Sig Swanstrom, he's been in a lot of assessing hotel rooms after these shooters, blow things up. These crazies go out and commit these atrocious mass killing. And one thing he said on my show, and it really got me thinking, where's all the hardware in these photos that he's looked at, in these crime scene photos? His eye is trained to look for certain patterns. And he said, Sheila, there'd be so much brass. It would be littered. That would look like carpeting all over that floor. And so he started pointing out things, and there's just so many things that don't add up, Daniel. There's something just like I said, it stinks in Denmark, and I don't even know if we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. Oh, this was a federal psyop, gun running operation gone wrong. Now we're hearing all these CIA, these connections. It just. But will we ever get to the bottom of it is my question. We need answers from this. Well, and then you've got this sheriff that's come out a few times, and he's contradicted his story. He's really grasping to try to rehash the rhetoric. The FBI has clearly given his talking points, but you can tell the guy's struggling with this whole thing, can't you?
Yeah, he's struggling. It sounds like he's got somebody telling him what he cannot say, And then they said, well, we can't have people on the internet, making stuff up. Well, gee, I think the people making stuff up is probably more plausible than what they're feeding out here. And whatever happened to the two or three people running through the crowd saying you're all going to die? Are we just supposed to just forget that?
Well, it's not just that, but there's actually videos circulating now of even Jason Aldean, and I exposed a couple of things that are really interesting connection with him too in that video that we'll link. But this is very interesting. He told people, okay, move. Then that's what he said before the shots started firing. And then you have this Las Vegas Craigslist with all these crises actors positioned just weeks before. This is starting to look a whole lot like other things we've seen, Daniel.
Yeah. I didn't really want, is a horrific mass shooting. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm no conspiracy for me, no false flags. Okay, it's a crazy man. He's got a motive. They're going to get the motive. We're going to find out it's going to be whatever. Everybody's fighting with, trying to make him a Democrat, trying to make him a Republican. Trying to do the political, position there. And so I didn't want to have a false flag kind of attitude or conspiracy attitude. I just wanted just an event, and it's going to be like this. But no, here it is. Weeks later, nobody has a motive, and 2,000 cameras in a hotel, and I haven't seen a single frame of him carrying a bag into the room or of anywhere. And I know for a fact that they have those videos. It's kind of like the Pentagon, 85 cameras and not a single frame of a plane. In 5 years, they released 5 frames of a grainy something of a puff of smoke. How can that be? So they're forcing me into the conspiracy in the false flag attitude because they are withholding something. They know much more than what they do. And right now, there are a whole bunch of people behind the scenes massaging the story. Okay, we got to get this out. It's not working the right way, so we'll just kind of hold things off. They're trying to develop something, and then they're going to give it to us. It's not going to make any sense anyway.
Well, here you have this guy. He's fairly unassuming. We know very little about him other than he was, excessive gambler, maybe on some psychotropic drugs, not a gun guy, according to his brother. And then all of a sudden, he can take up, do you know how many pounds, just pounds, not kilograms of ammo that would have had to been there, and up 32 flights of stairs, a 64-year-old man. All of a sudden, this unassuming 64-year-old becomes Jason Bourne overnight. It's very strange, Daniel.
Yeah. How does that happen? How does an alcoholic doper like that And then you see all the pictures of, with his eyes closed. What is it with that picture? They keep running around with his eyes closed. How many times are they going to show that? What is it, like eyes wide shut? I don't know, man. I've never seen anybody, any news organization and the media in general put out so many pictures of somebody with their eyes closed. There's got to be something to that. That's an Illuminati right there.
Well, and now there are all sorts of people that were saying, oh, like the woman that said on record there's multiple shooters. She suddenly had a weird trip down a flight of stairs and died mysteriously.
Oh, here
and
we
then
go.
the other guys disappeared. Like, what is going on with this? It's very strange. And then, of course, with the shooting, one of the things I found so incredibly inept was the fact that you just mentioned it. It's so incredibly obvious, but no one's talking about this. In a place like Hollywood or in Las Vegas, especially on the Strip, you have Big Brother cameras everywhere in these casinos, these hotels. Nothing gets by these guys, not even upstairs in, when you're going down emergency exits. So where's all this footage of this guy taking these guns? One thing with him packing a bag through the hotel, I just want to see one shot, one camera, one tiny bit of video footage, but it's crickets.
Mm-hmm. It's like I say, they're massaging the story, and I think somehow it didn't work out to exactly what they want. So now they're trying to come up with something. Sheila Zielinski, we're right here at the top of the hour. We take a 5-minute break here. I've got your website in our background. Tell the folks what they can find on there.
Okay, so Sheila.media, Sheila. It's a new. People used to butcher my website, so we just got something really easy. So they can go there. They can find books, the show times, how to listen, and other goodies over there at Sheila.media, Daniel.
Okay. All right, Sheila, we're going to turn you down for 5 minutes. We'll be right back with you. All right, everybody, you're watching and or listening to the Edge television broadcast. On our newsmaker line tonight is Sheila Zielinski. Sorry for the stutter there. And we'll have her back in 5 minutes. Here we go. And welcome back to the Edge television broadcast. My name is Daniel Ott. If you missed any of the exciting first hour with Sheila Zielinski, it will be replayed in our main player directly after the show. We'll put it up in our YouTube channel and into our TuneIn Radio playlist. TuneIn Radio channel is where we play our archives 24 hours a day, and that plays on any platform across any device as well. Don't forget, we podcast this as well. Let's go back to our newsmaker line, and welcome back, Sheila Zielinski. Sheila, welcome back.
Thank you, Daniel.
Wow, we mixed it up in the first hour, but there's a lot of horror out there. And as I said in Apocalypse Now, I think it was, is we need to embrace the horror, but maybe I'm not so much in favor of embracing more than I am resisting. And I'm going to start resisting that every time I turn on this internet here, sort of like you do, Sheila. When you find out, you said in the first hour that your Twitter accounts have been minimized and diminished. Have you reached out to them and asked them and called them on it, or how are you handling that?
Yeah, no, we have sent them several emails, and actually somebody even tried to contact them from my team, and yet it's just the silence is deafening. We haven't got a response, but we've taken about 37 screenshots from when it was 87,000 to 82 to 75 to 73 to 62 to 50. 57K is my current. No, it's actually down another 1,000. So see, it's dropping as fast as Megyn Kelly's ratings.
Wow, and you say that your YouTube videos have been demonetized?
Every single one of my YouTube videos have been, with this Stasi censorship, has been completely demonetized. They don't appear in threads. People are not getting notifications. My subscribers. Like my YouTube channel got taken down 4 years ago when Dave Hodges and I actually did a show uncovering the British pedophilia, Jimmy Savile and the gang, those pigs. So we did a show, we did a couple series on that, and then suddenly they didn't even give me any notice. They just took down my Sheila Zielinski YouTube channel. So I had to call it something else and just started a new one about maybe 3.5, 4 years ago. And this one is only... it's reached a threshold of 30,000, and then it didn't move from there. In fact, it started dropping down, although we've got thousands of little notifications. So and so has become a subscriber, but it never reflects on the numbers. So they're definitely something stinks in Denmark with that. I think we're getting targeted as well.
Do you get a notice every time that they do that to say you have violated the terms?
Yes, I get a notice every single time. Well, right now, in fact, anything I upload, they automatically I'm in their demonetized video channel. Nothing is eligible for monetization on my channel. I've been just flagged as I guess I'm the reigning tinfoil kook, Daniel. So.
Well, you're what I would call the point of the spear, and frankly, you're very clear in what you say, and you don't mince words. And really, we've all really been trained to mince words and to hold back. And meanwhile, while we're being gracious, the left has been on this all-on attack, telling us how to be. But it's time for us to push that back. And of course, the internet is a major tool for us to do that. But I think all these things that's happening with John Podesta's pornographic pictures that he drew, and the shootings, and the NFL and Hollyweird, people should now come to the understanding that it isn't conspiracy, that there is an all-out war, and you can either choose to remain silent and you will be probably thrown into a FEMA camp, or you can push back and throw them in a FEMA camp.
I actually make a connection with FEMA camp in the NFL, by the way, which we'll talk about. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is why what Carla and I wrote when it came to this book, Power, Prayers, Warfare That Works, we are not fighting flesh and blood here. We are fighting principalities and powers and rulers and evil miscreant to this age. And that's really evident with what we're seeing right now. The demonic hosts of hell have imploded. Just like with Hellyweird. Who do they serve? Well, we know who they serve. These Luciferian Satanists. Mm-hmm. Never, Daniel, has there been a time in history when I think warfare was so urgently needed. And as we kind of fast approach what I think are the end of days, never have we seen, well, you mentioned him, Joel Osteen, these miscreant in the pulpit, the pulpit permeating pulpiteers, as I call them, jellyfish.
Wow.
The pulpit pukes in the pulpit there. How do you like that?
I love it.
I know I'm going to get in trouble, but I mean, these neutered devils, these absolute spineless weasels that they refuse to preach the gospel, the full gospel. Joel Osteen is proud of saying, well, I have Muslims and homosexuals in my church. Listen, if you're going to a church and you are still a homosexual or a Muslim after attending there more than a week, there's something stinks at that church, Daniel. So that's why it's really important that we stop having this callous disregard for God and prayer, because it's always treated as a side note. It's like, oh, well, I guess in my last resort I could pray. And meanwhile, false doctrine abounds, seducing spirits, gross teaching, this name it, claim it, churchianity, the seeker-friendly, emergent, absolute disgusting situation we find ourselves in the church in America today. It's just like 3 hymns and a PowerPoint, nothing about Jesus. Every day's a Friday. It's absolutely nauseating.
Somebody sent us in, Philip sent us in a note saying that we were talking about how that Trump has stopped the war on Christmas and the war on coal and the war on morality. They said also accredited to Trump is he's getting ready to rip up a disastrous nuclear deal with Iran, where nobody knows still to this day where Obama had billions of dollars sitting on a pallet and shipped over there. Nobody knows where he got that stash. I know it's part of Obama's stash, but nobody knows where it came from. And then, of course, he's also got the Keystone Pipeline back online here and trying to get the United States to be energy independent. So you're right. The list, and you said it earlier in the first hour, the list of what he's done is so vast, but of course you'd have to keep up with it yourself, because the news media would have you believe that everything he does is creepy and the worst ever, but it's really not.
Well, and one of the big things, not just, the Iran deal and NAFTA and the climate gate, all these scandals things, he's even looking at releasing the assassin of John F. Kennedy. He's doing things that are just causing liberals' heads to explode. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's happening. And isn't it odd that he's one of the very few people that have ever come out and his wife said the Lord's Prayer in a national consortium. Like, this is unprecedented. We have a praying president. I think that's huge in itself.
Right. And I mean, it goes on and on. There's so many good things. I got to find somebody with a list, man, because, maybe as long as, Hillary Clinton's body count list, but good things for Trump. He's going to undermine the nuclear deal with Iran, and he's going to, now, what about this? Let me ask you something about this wall. Is he going to trade, this might be on a negative, is he going to trade the wall for the Dreamers to be made legal citizens?
That's a really, Steve Bannon's been saying some things. I mean, I have a big question mark there. What's going on with the wall? Hillary Clinton was just talking about that this morning. Absolutely cringeworthy. Oh, and by the way, I got to throw this out there. You just made me laugh when you were talking about Hillary. Do you remember in her book? I actually read her book. It was very cringeworthy. Her new book, wanting to know how she lost. She said this. Here's a quote right out of her book. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He was literally breathing down my neck. My skin crawled. And I thought, are you referring to your husband that time Predator crawled into your bed?
Wow.
But she was actually talking about President Trump behind her when she was speaking. I just had to throw that in there because it was so hilarious. And of course, the very next day we see her on BBC talking about, and her quote was, and I found this just incredible. After all, we have someone, Daniel, admitting to being a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office. Again, have you met your husband? The sick, twisted, disgusting pedophile predator that he is. Why isn't he in jail? Why isn't she in jail with these trail of dead bodies that are stacking up, as you just alluded to? Why are these people not in jail? Why is Loretta Lynch, mob, as I call her, or, this big tarmac meeting has resurfaced? Have you seen this? Why are these people not in jail is that's my question.
Well, Loretta Lynch should be in jail. I don't even understand that either. I mean, there are forces, and I don't know how many of Obama's people are still in the Justice Department, but I know that Deep Swamp is still there and it's operating. It seems like there's been a lot less leaks here lately. I don't know if they've got them all out or they've nailed the people that have been doing that. I don't know.
Well, by the way, have you seen these prototypes for Trump's border wall? Trump's wall is a symbol of America's sacred sovereignty. The Hill just reported out today. It was pretty funny. But, Daniel, I think here's the deal. I think we're getting hit with the kitchen sink. And I think we're so distracted and we're so distressed and we can't keep up with, our minds just cannot keep up with this. Hit them with a rapid fire issue one after another, like Antifa coming on. What do they do on November 4th? Every other day there's like this, it's Hell's Kitchen. We're getting hit with the kitchen sink of it too, isn't it? So it's a little overwhelming and people just tend to zone out. Do you find that? Because it's really overwhelming. But you know what? People cannot remain silent, though. There's, like I said in the first hour, there seems like the country has been given a little breathing room, a little bit of time. And what we do with that time really, is going to make the difference in the future because these people aren't going away. They are working 24 hours a day to come up with some other kind of crap to undermine America, undermine Trump, and undermine the American people. And so we have to remain vigilant. And they need to use whatever media they have, their own Facebook accounts or Twitter accounts or whatever they use, Instagram, and join the battle. Well, all you get in this life is a little bitty dash between two dates on your tombstone. And I say to people, what are you going to do with your dash? What are you going to do? Because really, we're in a lateness of the hour. There's never been more of an urgency for me to be leading people to Christ Jesus, because without Jesus Christ, what we're worthy of, Daniel? The vengeful wrath of the living God. Without Jesus Christ. So how can somebody acknowledge evil and not acknowledge the answer to evil?
All right, let's get to another question here from this is from our Fast Blast here. Let me click on it, see it, open it up. It says, why do you think Trump is filling his cabinet with generals and then some people that used to work at Goldman Sachs?
Well, yeah, we know we know that there's a lot of, like when he says drain the swamp, we know that there's still some alligators around him. But again, it's just like we saw in Alabama with Roy Moore. I mean, he didn't even put his stamp of approval. He put his stamp on the other New World Order minion. And that really, was a pause for concern to me. But again, you have to wonder, how much is Jared Kushner pushing the agenda too, right? You know, you got a Sabbatean Kabbalist at the helm, attached to him at the knee. I think he's getting some bad advice on some levels. And then you look at what Steve Pieczenik and Alex Jones have been saying all week. Oh, no, Trump knew about all this. I'm a little concerned about statements like that when Pieczenik throws out these, you know, these ideologies that Trump is absolutely part of the New World Order globalist swamp, the swamp plethora, the swamp cornucopia. I do not believe that for a minute, Daniel.
I have a picture in the background of Matt Damon and the guy with his eyes closed. We were talking about it earlier. Talk about somebody being programmed. Maybe, I don't know if a goon-looking creep like that could be programmed. Seemed like he would have a meltdown himself. By the way, you know, there's a receipt out there supposedly of 2 people ordering food in that guy's apartment in that hotel room. Whatever happened to that?
Well, I think it goes back to, like you said earlier, whatever happened to the 2 people that were warning other people there was going to be a shooting? What was that all about? Why has no one come forward on that? I think there's just so many bizarre twists. What is I'd like to hear your take on what's happened with this shooting.
Well, you know, like I said in the first hour, Sheila, I did not want to go conspiracy theory on this. I didn't want to go false flag, because that's like every time something happens, you know, there's the internet blows up and says, you know, false flag. And so it's like, you know, kind of yelling fire, you know, you get tired of it. But in this case here, I can't really come up with a definitive answer, you know, to say what, because all of us, anyone who has an idea of what really happened, is just as legitimate as the sheriff or the FBI saying what they're trying to tell us, because we know them fools are going to be lying to us. They're already working the plan now, massaging the story. So I'm you know, I'll cruise the internet and I'll look for somebody who can come up with a plausible thing. My view of it is there's more than one shooter in there. And I would think there might have been another shooter somewhere else outside the building. There seems to be evidence out on the internet where there was shots coming from different places, and there was sounds that indicate that there was multiple shootings or shootings going on at the same time. The guy was a freak and a kook. You know, I don't know how he was able to hit so many people, a single person. So I'm just going to have to say, from my conspiracy standpoint, there was multiple shooters in multiple positions.
Well, and like it goes back exactly. And police have dramatically altered their original timelines. All the sequence of events have changed, which kind of, Daniel, only makes the official story a little more unbelievable. And like I said, you know, the whole where are these hundreds of thousands of spent cartridges on Stephen Paddock's hotel floor? Do you know the kind of hardware that would be, you know, expended I mean, especially if a guy is gonna, you know, pump out 500. How many rounds? How many 1,000 rounds in just 10 minutes with a modified semi-auto? I find that amazing, but I actually find it an impossible feat. You know, according to some of the published reports, you've got 58 or 59 killed. They can't get that straight. Over 500 were wounded. So if you achieve that many casualties, the shooter would have had to have fired thousands of rounds here. You know, the bump stocks, we see this with the NRA coming out, you know, signaling, oh, we're going to have a conversation with the legislation on bump stocks. I mean, there wasn't even a bump stock used in this. So what is that all about? And so, you know, it's not just a gun grab, but it always comes back to, I think the greatest deterrent to the collapse of freedom in the West is, you know, an armed citizenry. I always say, and this guy was like, oh, Sheila, come on, you know, it's a hunting. And, you know, people say the most ridiculous things, but it's like, yeah, but listen, the Second Amendment is not given to us in case the deer rise against us, Daniel, is it?
Well, I heard Michael Savage on the Savage Nation say that, you know, talking about the bump stocks and, you know, machine guns in general. He says, look, I'm going to make some of my audience mad because I think, you know, we need to have a conversation on you know, why does somebody need a machine gun? Well, wait a minute now. There's no differentiation in the Constitution that says what guns you can and cannot have. Then he sort of mockingly said, well, somebody can have a tank, they can have a tank. Well, yeah, they can have a tank. They can have any kind of weapon they want, and if they use it wrong, then they get arrested. You can't do a minority report and take people's guns away because they might do something with it. That's ridiculous. There's no, and until that Constitution is changed, there's no differentiation between what type of weapon somebody can own. If they go out and commit a crime with it, then they have to pay the penalty for that crime. But you can't say you can't have it because you might create a crime. I'm 100% for anybody can own anything until, if they commit a crime, then they got to pay the price.
Well, absolutely. These crazies that go out and commit these atrocious mass killings, whether it's black ops or a gun running sting or something else, Daniel, these programmed mind controlled minions that you always see, like the VTech shooter and Jared and Holmes, sadly, even what you saw in Vegas, that is the price that you pay for liberty. Liberty is costly. And the gun in the hands of a bad man, I always say, is a dangerous thing. But think about it. A gun in the hands of a good person, that's no danger to anyone except the bad guys. Me and Sig Swanstrom, the SWAT team decorated officer, went over the stats that he has in his book, I think it's God, Guns, and the Guts of Self-Defense, something like that. And, it's amazing. He covers all these statistics where, and I pointed this out, it was stunning, the statistics in like Chicago. Well, look at these gun-free zones, or murder-friendly zones, as I call them. How is that possible? How is it possible that Switzerland, as a population of 8.2 million, requires its citizens to own guns? They have the lowest homicide rate in the entire world. But when you look at Honduras, exactly the same population, 8.2 million, banned citizens from owning guns, highest homicide rate in the world, the entire world. So how does that compute?
Well, yeah, that goes back to the NFL. I don't see them taking a knee for all the murders in Chicago. These guys, the ultimate hypocrites, man. They're not to be believed and not to be given any credibility whatsoever. That's just crazy. All right, we have a question for you from Billy Strasser. He wants to know what guest have you ever had on your program that after you heard what they said scared the crap out of you?
I don't know about scaring the crap out of me, but this one with Russ Dizdar is a good. We also did one a couple weeks ago called "Rise of Homo Satanists: The Coming Black Flame and the Fourth Reich." I think that scares me. This proposition of all these programmed multiple shooters on steroids, all getting triggered at one time, millions of them all over for like a global chaos bloodbath. I think that doesn't sit with me very well. Well,
the word homo doesn't sit very well with me either. Listen, you asked me earlier, Sheila, about, what my take on the shooter, and I'm going to, my original one, and I've kind of, only because of lack of paying attention to the story, but I was going to go along with ISIS on this a little bit here, because some of the things that this guy did mimic the way ISIS behaves, in that he had reverse intelligence going on against the police when they come, which is a signature thing that ISIS does. They've made claims that, and then you got this crazy woman who got emailed $100,000. She leaves the country. She goes to a place in the Philippines, and there's a bastion of Islam and terrorism anyway. And she comes back in a wheelchair. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what kind of scene is this supposed to be? She leaves, she flies out of here, and then she comes back in a wheelchair off the airplane. And then, the $100,000, where did that go? Is she a Muslim? And these kind of things. So, I can give some credibility to that. He probably converted over and just did their dirty deed for him.
Well, I don't know if I'm buying this whole thing with ISIS. There's just so many. After I saw these police individually reporting, different shooters. Oh, there was a guy at the Bellagio. There was a guy halfway up inside the fairgrounds reporting at Gate 7. One police said, oh, yeah, there was one in the 50th, 60th floor, not the 32nd floor. One said there was one right in the middle of a Mandela Bay. This is police officers reporting on radio scanners. We have copies of those. There was one up on the 15th floor of the Mandela Bay. What happened to the guy at the numerous eyewitnesses, Daniel, inside the Bellagio and other hotels said shots came to the front door? Where's the Ruger bolt action 308 that Paddock purchased only a few hours before the shootings? I have 700 questions.
Right, and we're not going to get those answers. I want to know where the video is from the hotel. I want to know who the people were running through the crowd saying you're going to die. I want to know the video of gunshots in the crowd. Speaking of that, by the way, we have this question from Cleet out of our live chat. It says, why do you think the FBI was brought in when this is a crime of the state?
Well, that's the $10 million question. Was the FBI really needing to get involved with this? And that's, I think, why you see the sheriff so frustrated. And I've actually talked to somebody in the local sheriff's office, and I'm finding this story very strange, how the FBI swooped in. So I got to agree with your.
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like the FBI was pre-positioned there, and isn't there every time the sheriff speaks, isn't there a goofy-looking FBI guy kind of looking over his shoulder?
I was just picturing that as I was saying that.
I mean,
he's a goofy. He's got kind of a weird, strange. You better not. You better stay in the line of your bought and paid for little talking points, pal.
Well, that's what I'm saying. See, do you remember what we were supposed to talk about? We said we're going to wait to the second hour. I was right enough.
Yeah. Actually, well, you just said you don't like the word homo. Well, I've got a couple of things that I've put together. I wanted to share with your listener.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting because I was talking about this gang of outlaws in the NFL. It's much bigger than a football game here. And of course, I've talked about in past shows the NFL's role in the coming martial law, the fact that they're now like an extension of the TSA. Operation Mountain Guardian was a drill they had. I think this is going to shock some people, and Right Wing Watch hammered me on this, but I'm making a shocking statement. I think that NFL stadiums, by the way, and I proved this irrefutably, they're FEMA camps in hiding. But anyway, I'm going to get into something that I've raised, and forget the child prostitute claims, the Jerry Sandusky gate, the whole child pedophilia ring, and the former Penn State football coach, and forget all that for a minute. Forget all the domestic violence and child abuse and pedophilia, your entire backdrop of the NFL. And also, of course, we saw Ray Rice and that disgusting thing. We see all these domestic abuse cases. So we're going to put that aside for a minute.
Okay.
Listen to this.
Right.
So I've broken this down. How the gay agenda is absolutely storming through the NFL. LA Rams first NFL team to sponsor gay pride event. 2011, NFL added sexual orientation discrimination protection in the collective bargaining agreement. New York Giants owner Steve Tisch appeared in ads and lent his support for the same-sex marriage battle in New York. New England Patriot owner Robert Kraft were the only NFL teams to sign an amicus brief supporting the Supreme Court to legalize gay marriage. NFL included sex between men as part of their AIDS awareness for players in its 2015 AIDS awareness campaign. St. Louis Ram drafted Michael Sam cleared another hurdle for gay athletes looking to play openly in the league. Michael Irvin appeared on Out magazine. Roger Goodell has been open about having a gay brother, and so is Michael Irvin. New England Patriots are sponsoring the 2017 Gay Bowl, sponsoring the annual event for future. It says we're going to sponsor it in the future, too. San Francisco 49ers sponsored the GLAAD Media Awards. The NFL and the Ad Council shot a commercial using a kiss cam with two males to send a message of equality. The Los Angeles Rams sponsored the Venice Pride Parade in 2017, paying to light up the sea. Houston Texans owner Bob McClure publicly opposed an anti-LGBT, is it LGBT now? I can't ever get that straight.
You got to add a whole bunch more.
In Texas in 2017, he opposed the Texas Bathroom Bill 26, and he withdrew his donation to anti-LGBT groups. The Arizona Cardinals publicly opposed anti-LGBT. The San Francisco 49ers donated $300,000 to Equality North Carolina. Don't get me started on that devilish organizations. The Detroit Lions donate hundreds of tickets to LGBT groups. The New England Patriots support trans rights bill in Massachusetts. I mean, I could just go on and on all day. And all of them have went all rainbow on their social media. They promote abortion, gun bans. They promote the gay agenda. This is why I said this NFL is nothing more than a propaganda machine, Daniel.
Wow. Well, I have even more reasons not to watch it. Wow. I didn't know all that was going on, Sheila. That was very, very good there. You've been collecting a list, obviously, and I think that list needs to get out there. You got anywhere on your website, or a video, did you put things like that in?
I've got an NFL Smackdown that I talk a little bit about it, but I want to just touch on something, too, that I think the whole thing with the NFL is this. We see their numbers dwindling. Of course, we saw a couple of weeks ago all these people are burning their jerseys and everything else. But I want people to stop listening to this phrase. the NFL's rights, the players' rights. When you hear that, you call them out on that, because listen, they don't have any rights when it comes to exercising your free speech, your First Amendment. You can't do that in your workplace. Were you aware of that, Daniel?
No, they don't have any. They don't have any rights. I don't know where that even comes from, man.
Well, here's the deal. When it comes to, well, and I talked about this in that NFL SmackDown, it's not a right to protest the anthem. The Second Amendment does not have any application to your workplace. If you say some kind of you pick your thing, like a Walmart greeter or the Federal Express, the FedEx guy, and I drop Daniel off a package. I don't have the right to talk you into coming to my Scientology meeting. I don't have the right to talk to you about whatever religious freedom and political agenda that I want to talk to you about. It doesn't apply. The rights of the National Football League players, they don't have a right here. You cannot talk at work or engage in any kind of freedom of political or religious speech. So like I said, the Walmart greeter, the FedEx, you don't have the constitutional right to talk to me about your political or religious ideology. So that is the point, is that stop saying this, you political buffoons, you pundits. Stop saying it's a right of the players. That just is one of my little pet peeves.
Well, see, what you're hitting on there is the fact that most Americans, I would say, if they went to government schools, they're going to say, hey, they got rights. They got the right to say whatever they want. You're right. You put that in exactly the context that it should be. In the workplace, you don't have rights to say what you want to say. I mean, if you go to a Verizon store, the Verizon guy can't say, hey, go over there to AT&T. They got a better deal. I mean, you'd be looking for another job. And in any workplace, it's just like that. So why is the NFL getting a pass? And you know what else? For a long time, exactly. Why are they getting a pass? But listen to this, Roger Goodell, the globalist puppet that he is. For a long time, the ownership of the NFL prohibited all kinds of political causes and religious type rhetoric, especially controversial political protests. The Dallas Cowboys, I don't know if you remember this, Daniel, last year they wanted to have a little decal in their helmet for just a game or two, not permanent thing, honoring the 5 dead cops. No way. The NFL and the commissioner said, hey, we can't allow our uniforms or stadiums to be used to advance any political cause. In 9/11, the same thing. That linebacker wanted to wear a patch that said, never forget. The NFL said no again. Look, we're not going to honor dead cops. We're not going to honor the folks who lost their lives during 9/11. We're not going to wear purple cleats, FYI, to the Steelers linebacker. We're sorry your mom went through domestic violence, but we're not doing the purple cleat deal. The league said we have rules against political causes. So how is it possible for the NFL last year to allow this buffoon, this clown, Colin Kaepernick, to begin a protest against what, Black Lives Matter, police? What's this guy, even every week it changes what his political causes. And this is, by the way, the same Colin Kaepernick who supported Fidel Castro's communism, FYI. Well, yeah, didn't Colin Kaepernick, didn't he wear socks that had pigs in a blanket or something on there? I mean, mocking the police. I mean, he should have been fired right then.
Well, that's the thing, is they have the wherewithal. Really, they can fire them right on the spot. That's the whole point of it.
But you know what? I am looking forward to the implosion, because Goodell, or whatever, how you spell his name there, he put out that kind of memo. He didn't say this is the rule now about, you have to stand up. We'd like you to stand up. But the NFL Players Association, they were getting ready to have some kind of backlash. And I'd just like to see them run out in the field with their fists raised or something, look even more stupid than they really are. And then have the NFL fighting in amongst itself. What do you think about that?
I agree. And, like I said in the beginning, taking a knee for your fellow man, why don't you go look at a veteran that's got his legs shot off? That's what taking a knee for your country looks like, these minions. It's anti-Christian, the NFL. It's, like I said, it's a globalist propaganda churning machine, anti-Christian, anti-American, LGTB pushing multiculturalism, which is straight out of the pit of hell, because that's very much malevolence disguised as benevolence. Sounds good. Ooh, multiculturalism, diversity, and acceptance of all things. Coexist, those bumper stickers, join hands, kumbaya. Forget that we're all individuals, Daniel. Forget that we have a constitution on life support, death by 1,000 blows. Let's just coexist and join hands and have a group hug, and we're all one with the universe. That is straight out of the Alice Bailey occult new age mishmash. And that's what I said. It's just it's new. It's what is this? I don't know. 1984 meets New World or Brave New World on steroids.
I don't know, man. But I was really miffed when Beyonce had her Black Lives Matter halftime show last time. Between the twerking, the whole thing was Black Lives Matter. It's like, are you kidding me? Where do they get these people? Who's deciding what America should see in the NFL and in the Super Bowl to see crap like that? I don't get it. Who do they think their audience is out there?
Well, same with the Grammys. The one Grammys where they had the devil horns and Highway to Hell was being played. All these occult Illuminati symbols with these little Illuminati Hellyweird minions. They're always given their talking points. Look at Jay-Z. Look at Eminem. Did you see the Eminem poster, by the way, with the Harvey Weinstein background on? I thought that with his little pyramid, all-seeing eye necklace.
Yeah, I did see that come across the Facebook feed. Didn't Eminem write a song about raping his own mom or something? Everything out of the man's mouth has been vile and disgusting. Since when is he a champion for morals, Daniel? Well, yeah, he's been lifted up. Hey, if Eminem doesn't like Trump, then Trump surely can't be good because of that brain trust. I mean, I don't see Eminem as any kind of brain trust unless, maybe Obama's brain trust. But so we got things like that. Hey, Sheila, what do you think about what's going on in the Boy Scouts, man? They're gonna have girls now. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's been kind of happening over. It's the frog in the boiling water. It's kind of this incremental, death by 1,000 cuts. Let's open it up. Well, remember 2 years ago when they were already inviting boys to join brownies and Girl Guides, and now they've just flipped it. So it's like everybody can go and use the same bathroom. It's Target all over again, isn't it?
Well, listen, this is crazy talk when they say, hey, we're going to accept girls and they're going to have their own tent over there. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure the courts are going to get involved with that and put a stop to that right away. Right now they're saying they're trying the frog in the water thing is that, we should accept it as normal people because the girls are going to be separate from the boys. And so, we go, well, that sounds good. They just want to be an Eagle Scout. That sounds fair. But I'm telling you, within a month, probably, they're going to say, sorry, the course won't allow us separate. They're going to have to be put in together. They always do that.
But it's also a case where, again, we're getting acclimated to one little thing at a time, over and over. And before that, it's a complete erosion of our freedoms and liberties. And they're always moving the goalposts, these demonized progressive liberals, aren't they?
Yeah, they are moving it. Hey, we've got a question for you out of the live chat. It says, Sheila, why do you think it took so long to find the shooter when he'd been shot by a hotel employee already and the smoke alarm was going off?
Oh, that's a part of my 700 questions that I have. I mean, it was an hour and a half before the police got there. What is that all about? I mean, I'm sorry. I wish I could answer that, but I've talked to a couple of boots on the ground police officers, and they have a lot of questions. But again, the FBI swooped in. Nothing to see here, folks. Leave it to the experts. I mean, I don't know how to answer that. Sorry.
All right. Philip from Georgia has a question for you. He says, what do you think is going on with the epidemic of school teachers having sex with their students? And Sheila, I got to say, it seems to be more women having sex with male students.
Oh, absolutely. It's becoming an epidemic, is right. Well, again, this is what we see in a society where God's been kicked to the curb. They've taken prayer to school. Every day, something else is just an erosion of our Christian values, which are the backbone of America. So when you kick God to the curb, and abortion is like, what is Planned Parenthood, slaughtering and selling baby body parts to the highest bidder? There's a Moloch on every street corner of America. So why, if you have a godless society, you got Commie Core in every school, a litany of just complete liberal hippies. If they're not teaching at the Stanfords, these liberals are teaching our children with Commie Core, as I call it. I mean, you take God out of a society. When Satan rules in the halls of the school, I believe it's the pastors are responsible for it. And what do you have? Gutless pastors who are politically correct. They won't preach the word. They're seeker-friendly, emergent church, cotton candy, comatose propagators. I don't know. I guess that's the answer is when you kick God to the curb and you have no moral compass, well, I guess what do you expect? This is what you see, teachers sleeping with students.
Yeah, and wouldn't it? Didn't Trump revoke what's called the Johnson rule on that?
Yeah, so essentially the Johnson rule said that a 501c3 organization could not put their political backing behind a candidate, and Trump got rid of that. So therefore, now don't get me started on 501c3 because I still think it's very, don't get me, that's a whole show unto itself, but still that Johnson amendment basically said, listen, you're going to shut up, you're going to sit down, and you're going to sit in the corner, church pastors, and you're not going to, it's this division between it's the separation of state and church. So essentially he revoked that, saying, you know what, churches can do what they want. Look what happened in Houston where that mayor was on a rampage to go out. I covered that story where she was wanting all the sermons on anybody speaking out in a church against the ubiquitous sexual agenda, the gay mayor of Houston. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Whatever happened to her? Did they reelect her?
No, sir.
Well, that was interesting. I've never seen such a Gestapo-like thing ever in this country. I mean, that goes back to what we were saying in the first hour, that there's a war going on. Alex Jones calls it a war for your mind, but, there's a war for your soul, too, as well. And Sheila, you wrote the book, let me get this up here because I got the power prayer book. Now, is there anything in that book? And by the way, I have it. And thank you very much. And it worked. I use a lot of those prayers in there. Thank you. But to battle the sort of evil that's going on out there.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'd really encourage your listeners to join my Power Prayers. I have a Facebook page for that. They can check out some of the, results of people, like testimonials over there at powerprayers.ca is the website. Because one of the things I've raised this point, why is it that we don't see results with our prayers? And I challenge people with this idea that could a key element of praying powerfully be being left out altogether? And that is the truth. The truth is that the enemy does not want you to know the one thing that makes a difference in your prayers. And that's why Carla and I wrote this book, because we have power and authority over all the power of the enemy when we're in Christ. It says that in Luke 10:19. That's not some cutesy phrase that, behold, I've given you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. That is not some just little, filler that they thought, well, we'll throw that in the word. We're fighting principalities. We're not fighting liberals or Hollywood minions. We're fighting principalities and powers and rulers of this wickedness. So this is what we're talking about in the book. And there's a difference. And this is the bombshell. This is the kicker. If they don't take anything else away from this show, I'd like to give them one little gold nugget. Prayer is when you are addressing God. Warfare is when you're dealing with the enemy. And there is a difference. And people are not being taught to do spiritual warfare.
I just sort of had an epiphany while you were talking there. In the movie, I think the movie is called High Plains Drifter with Clint Eastwood. And if memory serves, that movie starts out with some thugs running over an encampment of people who are panning for gold in the high plains. And one little girl, her dog gets killed. And so she's in her cabin and she's praying right out of the book of Revelation. And then sort of during that prayer, it pans away to Clint Eastwood as the drifter, just sort of appearing. He like a puff of air. He just sort of appears. He materializes, and then he comes into the town and saves them. I'm wondering, is there any possibility that people in this country may have been praying the classic prayer, which says, "If my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, they shall heal their land"? Is there any possibility that prayers pulled Donald Trump into office?
There's no question in my mind that was all based on prayer. And that's just it, is because we have and I think that really is the greatest tragedy facing us today, Daniel, is denying the power of the demonic realm and the power of prayer. There's supernatural forces at play. And that is why we got to remember we have superior weaponry in our prayers. It says in James, effectual fervent prayers of a righteous man. What does it do? It avails much. And that's exactly what we need to be doing, is we need to be praying for Donald Trump and binding spirits of division and discord. And I have lots of those prayers I've put over there, not just in the book, but I post some of these prayers over there on my Facebook page, Power Prayers. So I encourage people that are serious about really getting in, rolling up their sleeves and getting with the program in this lateness of the hour. I challenge you to learn how to do spiritual warfare. And Carl and I have done enough shows that are archived on my website. Go back and listen to them. They're powerful stuff.
Well, I tell you what, it certainly changed the way I pray. I've been including prayers of warfare rather than saying, Lord, this and that, but then bind the power of the devil, because I think what I learned is when you pray, the devil's listening to your prayer. By the way, the movie was called Pale Rider, I've been told, not the High Plains Drifter, but it's sort of a biblical type of appearance there. So yeah, I think it's a great book, and in conjunction with, doing the prayers, then we need to go out and make a difference in our communities.
Absolutely. But here's the thing. In order to do that, you still have to get some semblance of deliverance yourself. You and I actually had a personal conversation about, some things and how prayer would help those situations. And you have a powerful testimony yourself. There's blocking spirits in our life we have to deal with. There's generational curses we come into this life with, we get saddled with. And just because you might accept Jesus Christ as your Savior doesn't mean that all of a sudden everything's just every day is a Friday. It means at that point, it's like if you have a fire extinguisher, and your house is on fire, it's one thing to just say, that's okay, I have a fire extinguisher. You actually have to appropriate that thing and use it. So we're not using what we've been given, the rod of authority. It's like when people say, God, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you doing something is what God is saying. I gave you the rod of authority. Why aren't you doing something is a better question. So we can bind, we can loose. People need to know how to do that. They need to know how to get free of demons, because everybody's saddled with different things, sometimes new age. If you've been involved in a Ouija boards, occult, psychics, yoga, there's so many ways you can get saddled with demonic affliction. And, a lot of people say, well, it's just their personality. No, I really believe that a lot of this stuff, when people are angry or they're bitter or they're frustrated or their marriage is not working, I believe that demons are at play in every one of those scenarios. We get saddled with a lot of generational curses. It says 10 generations back. We don't know what's going on in our bloodline 10 generations back. There's Freemasonry, witchcraft that saddles us with a death curse, and we have to break that off. Those are things that we have to do as believers. So, I don't have time to develop that in the waning moments of the show, but people need to get this book, Daniel. Power Prayers, Warfare That Works.
Would that be one of the greatest lies of the enemy, is that prayer is kind of to say a Christian, well, it's a nice thing to do, it's kindly, it's kind and it's gentle, but really that you're not really going to make a difference. Isn't that the biggest lie of the devil, that in fact those prayers aren't making a difference?
Well, yeah, that, and Christians can't have demons. And people say, oh, you see demons, a demon under every rock. I say, no, I don't see just one. And really, that's what it is we have to get delivered from all this stuff. And a lot of people out there, you might be listening. Maybe you don't have you've been praying for a mate. Maybe you've been praying for a job. You've been praying that God would open a door. You can't figure out why. Maybe you're going around the same mountain all the time. Why do you seem like you have a black cloud over your head? There is an answer to all of this, and we're never being given the solution, certainly not in church. We have the ability to deal with this stuff in the spiritual realm, and that's why I think it's so important to equip the body of Christ on how to do spiritual warfare.
All right, we got a question kind of wrapping this thing up, but this is kind of a different angle here. Where do you think we are sort of the end time prophecy type of situation?
Of course, they'd ask me that in the last 2 minutes of the show. Well, I think we're in the late minutes of the last minutes. Really, we have to see some things happen in prophecy be fulfilled. We have to see, we have to see the son of perdition, the man of sin, Apollyon, as the devil calls it. The devil is called the the man of perdition, the son of perdition. We haven't seen some things come to play. So I think I think we are going to actually see the return of Jesus Christ in our lifetime. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Sheila, I saw you at the Gen 6 conference. Let me ask you, what was your favorite part of that?
Well, I love Henry Groover. I love David Langford. I think those were very powerful messages. I thought Michael Lake was incredible. Tom Horn on his new book, Saboteurs, gets into all this Podesta, Clinton, stunning information in that. I mean, it's just so hard to say. I mean, Steve Quayle was great. It's hard to really pick a favorite one because there was just so many good ones.
Well, yeah, and my takeaway was when one of the interesting moments I thought was when they, I think it was L.A. Marzulli that said, how many here have seen UFOs? And of 3,000 people, I don't know, maybe 90%. And then another one was how many people that have been to church have found that the church isn't getting into the deep things of God. And again, 90% of the hands went up. And it just, the amount of people there just told me that there is such a vacuum in the conventional churches, the prepackaged churches, the mega churches. They're always preaching this gobbledygook, and yet the people are being destroyed for lack of knowledge. And they're not getting into the deeper things. And that tells me that they're being misled. If they're not getting into the deeper things, then they're being misled.
Well, and Steve Quayle posed a question. I was shocked at the arms that shot up. He said, how many people have left their church or not belong to a church? I was stunned that almost 95% put up their hand. That was very, very telling to me too.
Now, what do you think that is?
I know why that is. And I say to people, if you have a pastor and you belong to a church, go ask your pastor about the New World Order. And if he tells you it's a conspiracy theory, find a new church. That's a good way to tell. I think that the people are just sick and tired of this seeker-friendly, mindless, prosperity-driven, every day's a Friday, kumbaya church that is just not, it doesn't have any answers to anything. I think people see that there's a demonic landslide coming. I mean, look what's going on. Demonic manifestations are front page headlines. So people just are looking for answer, and I don't think the church is really accommodating people.
I would agree with that. Sheila Zielinski, we're right here at the end of the broadcast. I've got your website in our background. Tell the folks what they can find there.
Well, they can find all the information that we talked about tonight in terms of my YouTube channel. Some great shows over there. You can just click on the social media icons. Follow me on Twitter, although I'm burning down there. Follow me on Facebook. And all my social media icons are there. My books are there. The Power Parts book is there. The show archives are there. It's just like a one-stop shop. And make sure if you want to listen to the show, a great way is we've customized an amazing app. That's the Weekend Vigilante app, and I really encourage people to go there as well and go back in the archives. And there's deliverance programs I've done with Carla. I really recommend people go check that out. And
Sheila, I have to say, you are making a real difference out there, and hopefully people will rise up where they are and make a difference as well. Sheila Zielinski, I appreciate you coming on the Edge television broadcast. Can we have you on again sometime?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure, Daniel. Thank you, and thank you to your listeners for listening.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye. All right, everybody, that was Sheila Zielinski, and on the Edge television broadcast, this program will begin to replay here shortly after we upload it to our YouTube channel permanently, and we'll podcast the show as well, and we'll put it into our TuneIn Radio playlist. Next week, Carl Tykrib's going to be with us, talking about the paganism he found at the old Burning Man ceremony. He's always a good guy to hear. Come back next week for that. 2 weeks, Kelly Lee and Michael Broski. For the Halloween show here on the Edge, we're going to be getting spooky spiritual on that one there as well. A lot of fun coming up. And November 4th, L.A. Marzulli will be here on the broadcast. So a lot of great guests coming up. If we haven't had a guest on the program, just drop me a line at edgeam@yahoo.com. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. By the way, Facebook is where I put my ranting points. They will not appear in the YouTube. I normally don't put them up in YouTube. I just put them on my Facebook feed where they reside in perpetuity. Thank you, everyone, for your great questions, and everyone in the live chat and everyone watching the Edge television broadcast. Daniel Ott for the Edge. Bye-bye.